woman having 10 silver coins, if she loses one coin, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently until she finds it. And when she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost." Just so I tell you, there is no, sorry, just so I tell you, there is joy before the angels of God over one sinner who repents.
Thank you, thank you. So those are the parables we're gonna look at this morning, and just so we understand, do we know what a parable is?
Teaching.
Pardon me?
Story.
Good.
Teaching story.
A what story?
Teaching.
Oh, Chi-Chi story?
Teaching.
Oh.
Wait a minute, hold on. Teaching.
Teaching,
I got it
okay.
that time.
All right.
Come on.
And, it's usually used to illustrate some sort of moral or spiritual purpose or reason or lesson. And it puts word pictures into people's minds. And I think we see so many of the things that we remember through a story. So it's a great way to help us understand the point. It's not that we have to remember every single detail, but what the point of the story is. So, and I particularly want to look at the whole idea of value in these two parables this morning. It threads through all of them, including the last one of the two sons and father, but we're going to look at the first two this morning. Anyway, there's a main character who values something and doesn't want to lose it, but they do lose it. Then the main character rejoices in finding it. He searches for that lost valuable thing and finds it, and there's great rejoicing, not just by himself, but with others. And main character in this instance, God, expresses care and concern in the handling of what was lost and seeking it. And everything that was lost has a personal value, not just a monetary value, but shepherds care for their sheep, women care for their jewelry, fathers care for their sons. It really, the chapter kind of shows that it includes everyone. And so I want to talk about the value that's being expressed in these, but first I want to see what we can do to define value. And I'm going to show you something on the screen that is, I'm using it as an example of value just because I understand it because it's been my career. That's all. So let me show you this. Up here, two pieces of furniture. They're called in the 18th century term desk and bookcase or a secretary bookcase. Now the one on the left was made in Newport News, Rhode Island, and it is the most expensive piece of furniture that's ever been sold at auction in America. It's an American-made piece. The most expensive is sold in 1990, and in today's dollars, it would have sold for $30 million. Now, the one on the right is a copy of it, made by a furniture manufacturer. Probably 98% of the people in the United States would look at it and go, "That's exactly the same." They don't look any different at all. But you can go online and buy the one on the right today for $9,500. So the question, understandably could be asked, why is the one on the left more than 3,000 times more valuable than the one on the right? And they look the same, but they certainly have a different value. And I'm not going to get into all the reasons why. It's not a furniture seminar, but it can help us make some points here about what is valuable. Because I would venture to say that if you consider your spouse or your children or your grandchildren and their value to you, and someone else who's walking down the sidewalk that doesn't know them passes them, I think it'd be safe to say that you value them more than 3,000 times as much as they do. I think we're all like that. And so it asks the question, how do we arrive at these values? What causes us to value one thing over another? And especially when it comes to people. What causes us to value people in different ways, and maybe some more than others? I'm not, that's a question. That's a,
Love,
No, just kidding.
Barbie?
love,
Love, okay. Certainly. Anything else?
Rick, I think this is a good illustration. I think about, value is really determined by the beholder, and it's different for every person. So there's meaning that shapes what we value. And like in this scenario with that piece of furniture, I think the person that spent $30 million, they knew the history, they maybe had some relation to that history, that piece that was created, how there's a value point versus someone off the street saying, I know nothing about the history of that piece of furniture, I just need a desk and that works for me, I'll spend $100. So the beholder, knowing the story, they place their own value. I think that's what value is. It's different from one person to the next when you're dealing with a particular asset
Yeah.
like that, right?
Yeah, and you've mentioned the words know, understand, don't understand, and it says something to me about maybe knowledge of the object is something that causes us to value it. The more we know about it, the more we value things. And perhaps one of the reasons we value our friends and children and people more than others is because we've spent a lot of time with them. And we've gotten to know them, and they mean something to us because of that, rather than someone we just meet. It doesn't necessarily mean we don't value them, but we do have. Go ahead.
Well, finish your thought.
Oh, we do place more value on some things than others. Okay.
I was thinking about if someone walked into a room, and I look at them and I think, there comes a guy. But then other people are gasping and getting big-eyed, and somebody goes with a piece of paper and a pen, can I have your autograph? And other
That happens to
people
you
are
all the time, doesn't it?
doing selfies. I'm
Richard Petty.
speaking on personal
Yeah.
experience. Then my perception of that person's worth, in quotations, is it begins to change when I see the attention that's given to that person. And when I make myself remember that each person that I do encounter is so valuable that God would send his son to die for that person, that really increases, it should increase their worth in my eyes.
But could we say that ties back to the point of something makes something else more valuable? I mean, how God values that person, so then it becomes more valuable to you, or to all of us, I'm sure.
Hey, Rick, how about the person who authenticates it? Because somebody has to authenticate the piece, the furniture. I'm backing up.
Yeah,
Somebody has to authenticate it for a person to know about it and buy it.
uh-huh.
No?
I guess I'm not understanding, are you asking if they value it?
No, the authenticator, the person
Yeah.
who authenticates it to the person who's buying it.
Oh, yeah, and again, it goes back to knowledge. That person is passing on more knowledge about the piece, so then it could become, if you're interested, more valuable. I mean, something like this, basically, it takes two people with very deep pockets that really, really want it. That's why auction things go through the roof sometimes.
Well, the way we value people, one is blood,
Uh-huh,
if they're your family member.
yeah,
Association, if you're friendly with them, or you pick up the paper every day and read about people being killed across the world.
yeah,
And, we're not affected too much by that. It may affect us some, but if somebody in this classroom dies,
oh, yeah,
it's
big
much
difference.
more meaningful
Yeah.
to us because we know them, we're associated with them, we have a relationship with them. So physical proximity.
yeah.
I think Dave hit the point too, and I think Jack's gonna support that too, that we have to remember that Jesus died when we were yet sinners. Think about that. Like,
That we what?
we were yet sinners.
Yeah,
He died for us when we were yet sinners. Like,
yeah,
before I got to learning more about the scripture, I didn't think about that. I was thinking, oh, he probably just died for those who had committed to him. That's not so. He died for all.
Yeah.
And I think that's just tremendous to think about that.
yeah.
That it doesn't even have to be I'm a little closer to this one or a little closer to that one or know that one better. All.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, and it's knowing that has helped you value people. And so I'm kind of
Yes.
hitting on the point of knowledge.
I've said to myself
and-
before, somebody's been maybe not very nice to me or something, and I get my feelings hurt, and I get upset, and I have actually prayed before, Lord, forgive me. I know that you love that person every bit as much as you love me, whether they're Christian or not, doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You love that person. That person was a little innocent baby at one time and learned maybe some of those bad habits that insult people or whatever. But you love that person just as much as me.
That's a great point too. And it's amazing how much value affects the way we treat people and the way we think about people. Maybe sometimes how much we love people. But what are ways we can be tempted to value things or people differently than Jesus does, or that his example shows us?
Say that again, what are ways that what?
We can be tempted to value things in ways that are different than Jesus does.
Rick, I think through, one of my thoughts on the other, last question, which I think relates to this question, is values, we're not born with values, we're taught values, right?
We're what?
We're taught
Yeah.
values. I mean, all of scripture is teaching of values. Jesus teaches values,
Yeah.
right? So I think one of the temptations we often face is what are we listening to, right? Because if we're listening to the wrong set of values, right? I've been reading through Proverbs every day of this week. And what's the big thing that it starts out with? You know, listen to wisdom, right? So if we're, maybe one of the things that tempts us to not value the way Christ asks us to value is we're tempted to listen to the wrong sets of values, those that maybe tickle our ears a little bit, or those we value wealth more than we value people, let's say.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes
No,
sense.
it does. I mean, the culture in many ways has a very different way of valuing things than God does, than Jesus does. And that's why I asked the question. And then we could also talk about degrees of value. We have a little bit that, you know, sometimes we value something more than another, or a person more than another, like Jack said, for all of us. I mean, blood is a huge criteria for how we value someone that's in our family. And along with that value, of course, often comes a responsibility to protect and care for that person and nurture them and be there for them as need is. When we look at this parable of the coin and the lost coin, it has some monetary value. I think it was like a drachma, maybe worth one day's wages, so there was some significant monetary value. But it had a lot more value to her than that. It was like losing a wedding ring or an engagement ring. And the money was not the only thing that made it valuable. And when something valuable is lost, it seems like not much else matters until you find it. Even things that we take for granted, as long as we have them, we don't have, you know, maybe we don't put that much value on them, but think of losing your car keys. We've all done that probably
All the
for a
time.
while. I never think about my car keys unless they're lost. Unless I can't find them, and then all of a sudden, life stops and I've got to find it, especially if I'm trying to get somewhere in a hurry. But sometimes we can, it's funny how many things become valuable when they're lost, when we can't find them. And you have great relief when you do find that. And I'm sure there are other things we've lost, like car keys, that for a few moments until we find them are the most important thing in our life. So, but something about the coin though is the moment it is minted, it has value. As soon as it's minted, its value. It doesn't lose its value just because it's lost. A quarter's worth 25 cents, whether it's in your pocket or whether it's between the cushions on your sofa, it still has that value even though it is lost. But the quarter wasn't created to collect dust on the couch. It was meant for a specific purpose. And when we consider our value to God, I think the parable makes the point that we didn't have to do anything to earn our value. God deemed us valuable enough to send his son to die for us. And throughout scriptures, we see many references to about our value to God, or that help us understand our value, that we're made in his image, that he knows every hair on our head before we're even born. He knows more about us than we will ever know. We could go on and on about things in the scriptures that open our eyes to how valuable we are to God. And even no matter how we feel about God, whether we love him, hate him, that we're indifferent about him, we don't know much about him, our value to God doesn't change. We're loved. And we're never truly lost to God. We should get that in there. We're never lost to God. He knows where we are all the time. So that's comforting in itself, even though we can feel lost. We can feel lost or be lost in the sense of not having a relationship with him or turning away from that relationship. And like that coin, we can't live out our ultimate purpose if we're lost until we're found in a genuine relationship with God. That enables us to live out what God has called us to do. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but we looked at this quote here: knowing the Creator in a love union is where humanity finds the reason for existence and identity as a person. Now, that reason for existence and identity as a person was always there. As soon as we were born, it was there. But if we're lost, if we're out of relationship with God, we can't fulfill that. We can't realize that or understand that. And so understanding, knowledge, learning about God, developing a relationship with it, brings us into an understanding of just what our purpose is, the reason for our existence. And it comes from knowing him personally, not just knowing about him. And well, let me just keep moving here. God certainly longs for us to know him and be known by him. And he's given us unique gifts, long suits, abilities, sometimes an anointing, sometimes a spiritual gift. But we each have a role to play in his kingdom. And if we choose not to participate in it, it doesn't diminish our value to him as humans, but it does, we can miss out on what God has created for us and enabled us to do. So the parables of the lost coin and sheep are they're examples or illustrations of our intrinsic value to God. And it's a value that every person has. He delights in and values each of us because we're all created in his image. I mean, we're his children. And he doesn't take anyone for granted. So knowing our value to God, the intrinsic value, how does that change the way you think about yourself and you think about people? Maybe you have an example of it, or a time when you failed to do that. And I'll start off giving you one from my life, so give you a minute to think. I was working on a project in Baltimore a number of years ago, and I had to be on this job site when I was up there, at 6 a.m. in the morning. And so I would walk from my hotel to the job site. It was about 4 blocks. And in that 4-block walk, I would encounter somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 homeless people. Passed out, smelling bad on a steam grate, bunch of people huddled together, sleeping in a doorway, and some other situations I don't even want to voice publicly. And I remember walking there, and at first I was just stunned. Never been around that before, to that, that kind of close proximity. So I would walk there, and then I'd be going, what's the matter with these people? How could they allow themselves to deteriorate like that and become so, waste a life like this? And after I'd done that a few times, one morning I was walking to the job site. Everybody's laying on the street and huddled here and there. And I thought of my grandson at the time and how all these people out here were just like him when they were 5 years old, in the sense they're out playing, they're on a playground, not a care in the world, their whole life is before them, and happy, carefree, lots of hope in them. But for some reason, my grandson turned out very differently. The circumstances he was raised in were different, and maybe the opportunities he had, and his parents, of course, and where he lived. But it got me thinking that it helped me put valuing people in perspective, because I thought, God values all these people just as much as my grandson or me. And because of circumstances, maybe some of them beyond their control or genetics or whatever it is, they're in this situation now. So thinking about people, the value of people from a godly perspective, really helped me to change my thinking about people that were in that kind of situation, and not to be judgmental and condemning them, but really have more empathy or compassion for them. Any other thoughts on that? How understanding our value to God has changed how we think of ourselves or other people?
Rick, I'll speak up and say, this whole conversation this morning, knowledge is one thing that creates value, but the biggest component, and this is what we're all taught from Jesus's existence, is the heart. He brings heart value into everything. Looking at the world with your heart, looking at your fellow friends or your brothers or your sisters with a heart value. I mean, we may not always get along, and we have different likes and dislikes, but every one of us that are here today at church, we have a heart value towards God and towards each other as a result of what God taught us with his heart. We talk about love. It's really the heart. It's when you look at situations like that, passing people like that on the street, this term compassion, well, compassion is driven from your heart. That either you're going to open your heart up to people and help, or you ignore them. Right? It's like the Good Samaritan and the Pharisee, right? Walking down the path. Well, the Samaritan had a heart value for that person that was, struggling. We're the same way. And I think through our Christian lives, I know for me, I've been taught how much more value my heart creates in these decisions and perspectives of today's world. That's something that's, it's amazing to me how the impact.
Well, yeah, and I didn't say this before, but after I had that change of heart towards these people, which was, I got some blankets, I got some food, I got some coffee and stuff, and passed them out sometimes when I was going by them, instead of just being critical and condemning and judgmental. It changed the way I treated them. And not to toot my own horn, but to toot God's horn. Understanding God and putting my thoughts and heart in a godly position, and it was what caused me to change the way I treated people. So, any other comments on that? Yeah.
I used to teach ESL and
What's ESL?
English as a second language.
Oh, okay.
And our taught the beginner, and they come with absolutely no English. And I was just struck by their work ethic. And you see all these people working at Walmart, as many of them do. And I came to find out that there were doctors, there were professionals, there were people who sacrificed everything to come. And it gave them more value to me, that their work ethic and the sacrifice
Yeah.
that they made.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point. You know, you got to know them. You got to know them. And any other comments on that, thoughts? The parable of the lost sheep makes a lot of the same points in a different way. You go from an unmade thing to a living thing with the sheep. But when the sheep is lost, its value doesn't change, but it certainly changes the perspective and attitude and activity of the shepherd. All of a sudden, caring for that sheep and finding that sheep becomes extremely important, to where he leaves the 99 to go get the one. And once he finds it, he returns to the flock, he's rejoicing, and he lets others know about it to rejoice with him. And then Jesus concludes that parable, as well as the one on the coin, by saying, in the same way I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels over one sinner who repents. So, Jesus is giving these two parables. He's illustrating value. He's illustrating a level of heart empathy. I think the point you made, Brian, is extremely important to this. But imagine let's put ourselves in the shoes, for instance, of the tax collectors and sinners, or in the shoes of the Pharisees and scribes. And what are these two parables saying to them? What do you think they could be what kind of thinking and thoughts and feelings do you think they'd be going through, listening to Jesus talk about this, like the tax collectors and sinners? What do you think they would have thought? If you were in their shoes, what would they thought? What would you think?
A little bit intimidated.
They feel intimidated? The tax collectors and sinners?
Yeah, about what Jesus was saying, and
Why would they feel intimidated?
just what he knows and the way he's talking to them. The Pharisees thinking they know it all, and these guys are like,
You talk to them in love,
I know that, but I'm just saying the people, Pharisees.
or the Pharisees,
Oh, the
not
Pharisees.
the tax collector, okay.
All right. Any other thoughts?
I don't know, but if you want to increase your prayer life, lose something.
Oh, boy.
I've prayed about my car keys a number of
No.
times.
You want it, I mean, if you've lost a son or whoever,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
your prayer life is so strong.
Mm.
I lost a purse, had everything in it. Before I found that purse and got it back, my prayer life to God was so strong. I'm saying, please let me find this purse. Please, I will pay more attention. I offered him everything I could offer. And then I started thinking about all the things that I was losing if I lost that purse. And I'm going, oh dear Lord, don't let me do that. But my prayer life was strong. I don't care if it's the car keys or what, I am asking him to help me find whatever.
Yeah,
So your prayer life is, when you've
yeah,
lost
that's a
something,
great point, Shirley.
it's strong.
And it's interesting, you said, at the beginning of you said everything is in my purse, which
Yeah.
is not true, right?
No.
I mean, there's a lot, but all of a
That's
sudden
when
it
you start
becomes really important.
all is in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other thought?
Rick, I was just thinking a little bit about that, to do with, when I was in high school, they asked for volunteers to teach English to Cuban refugees.
Mhm.
And those, talking about value of things, they told us, they said, now, these people have come here with only the shirt on their back.
Mhm.
They said they get a knock in the middle of the night that the plane's ready to load up. and you go with nothing. And I think it's kind of like Kathy was saying, you know, those people could be in Cuba, could be been wealthy people, doctors, professionals, but they left everything. That's how much they wanted to leave there and come to America. So that's a real, you know, dedication when you're willing to do that. So I think that going back again, what do you value?
Yeah.
As
And they valued being here more than anything else.
they wanted
apparently.
to get away
least-
from that
Most of it,
bad situation.
yeah. It's a good point, yeah.
Rick, I think maybe the Pharisees, teachers of the laws, they may have felt a little attacked or convicted by what Jesus was saying, maybe
Yeah.
a little affronted, because the story he's telling sort of goes in opposition to their whole way of life. Like they're based, their teachings are sort of based on exclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
Of, you know, if you do the right things, then you get to be a part of us, and we are superior because of our choices. I think what these parables are teaching is that our choices do not diminish our value. That, you know, that the shepherd doesn't say, well, that sheep made its choice, it decided to wander off from the flock, get riddance, get lost. You know, that sheep still had value.
Yeah.
Even though it made the choice to wander away.
Mhm.
And you know, even though the coin was lost somewhere and couldn't be spent, it still had its value, like you said about the quarter in the couch. Jesus is saying, you know, we can't write people off just because of bad choices that they made. That they still, every soul is important.
Thank you. That's a great point, and I think, you know, when we read these, we can kind of say ask ourselves, which camp are we in? Are we in the Pharisee camp? Are we in the sinner's camp? Based on how we feel or we respond to this. And Rod, were you gonna say something?
I think we have to be careful that we have to remember that these three parables are not a lot about a sheep or a son or.
Yeah, they're about people.
It's about God.
Yeah.
This is about God.
Yeah.
And we're talking about his heart. This is about his heart.
Yeah.
And revealing his heart to those people. You know, everybody there was lost.
Yeah.
They didn't know it, some of them, the Pharisees and,
Yeah.
you know. But, you know, this just shows these people and shows us today what kind of God we have.
Yeah.
And when we either wander off or get lost in the cushions or we make a conscious decision to leave him, his heart's the same.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes every time. There's rejoicing whenever the sheep is found, the coin is found, or the son comes back.
Yeah.
The interesting difference is, he didn't go look for the son. You'll get into that later. He looked for the sheep, he looked for the coin. Maybe it's a difference when we make a conscious choice to leave him, that he's not going to go out like he did with a sheep that wandered away.
Okay. That's an interesting point you're making too, and I want to make one more point before we close. This class goes so quickly, but you know, a lot of times at least in our congregation, we call the elders shepherds, and we know what those responsibilities are. But at the same time, you know, we have a responsibility to help one another, to take care of one another, to bear one another's burdens. You know, Jesus taught us to take before we take the speck out of someone's eye, take the beam out of ours, to be there for people and to help them. And I wanted to share this one excerpt from some writings of Saint Francis of Assisi. I'm not a big adherent to his theology at all, but he made this one point that I think is something important to, there it is, really understand when we help one another come back when we've been lost, or help one another deal with sin. And he had this quote that says, Jesus did not focus on sin, he went to where the pain was. Whenever he found human pain, there he went, there he touched, there he healed. not trying to make a point that we downplay sin. Jesus did care about sin. But a lot of times when we're trying to help people, because of their value to God and therefore to us, sometimes when people are involved in sin and we're trying to help and they ask for help, they want help, sometimes it's helpful to look for the pain behind it, because sometimes sin is a symptom of a life situation, of a trauma, of a hurt, of a wound. There's that old saying, hurt people. And I just think he makes a good point here that, how often is, what's behind the sin? And if we're trying to help someone with it, is saying, oh, that's wrong. You need to do that. Here's the scripture. Now take 2 of these scriptures and call me in the morning. Maybe it's more getting to know that person and seeing where that pain is. Any thoughts on that before we go? I'm going to stand here in quiet until the buzzer rings.
Right. Right, and what you're saying is that you may just be seeing the surface, but there may be some really painful things going on.
Yeah, there are evil people in the world that are just evil because they want to be evil. That's a different thing. But so often, behind these sins are even, behind addictions and behind lust and behind dishonesty and so many things, there's some kind of pain going on behind there. And that's maybe where we need to pour our life into. Jesus certainly did that. And we do it because we value humans, just like God does. So, more thoughts?
I think addiction, for sure.
Yeah.
People are looking for relief from pain, emotional, whatever.
Any other thoughts?
Often I wonder about, you see homeless people on the side of the roads and things like that. And much to your story, you can't help but wonder, and when you talked about your grandson 5 years old and so forth, what is the turning point of these folks that started the spiral?
Mm-hmm.
What's their story?
Yeah.
I wonder about all.
Well, that's a great way to put it. Say, what's the story behind the sin? Sometimes that's what we need to listen to. Any other thoughts? Next week, I actually put this on the slide. This is what we're going to look at. This is the assignment for next Sunday. We'll be starting on the prodigal son, as it's called, and chapters 4 and 5 in the book. Any other thoughts before we run out the door? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
You don't know, you didn't want to do it.
It's been pretty busy.
I have